Hey everyone, Adam here. So in this video, I'm going to do another book review on Discipline Equals Freedom, a field manual written by Jocko Willink. Now, as always, whenever I do a book review or people of interest, remember a long time ago I created a disclaimer video. I'm going to link that up, and if you have any negative complaints or whatever, fair enough, but check out the disclaimer video first. And that's enough on that. All right, so let's dive right into it. Overall, I think it's a decent book. And part of the reason I feel that way is because I'm biased in the sense that I believe in one of the core principles of the book, that discipline does in fact equal freedom. And the reason I believe that so strongly is because if you can be disciplined in the right areas of your life, there's a very high probability or a good chance that you can build the life that you want. And I think that that is incredibly powerful. And discipline equals freedom is one of those concepts that I truly believe has the potential to get you what you want out of life. Now, as always, when we talk about life, there are no guarantees. You may be thrown stuff in your life that is incredibly difficult and challenging to deal with, but by and large, I do feel that discipline will set you up on a path for success in most circumstances. Now, I have read this book twice, and the first time I read it, I was very positive of this book, and I still am positive of this book, but we'll get into that later in this video. And the reason for it is because, again, I really believe in that core concept about discipline and how important discipline is in an individual's life. The other thing that Jocko talks a lot about in this book is also about accountability and taking responsibility, which is another core concept and value for me, and so it really resonated with me. In fact, Jocko actually wrote another book, I think it's called Extreme Ownership, something to that effect, that talks about this very topic. Now, let's see, when did I first read this book? It may have been 5 years ago. Don't quote me on that. I can't exactly remember. But it was a while ago. And at that point in time when I was reading, I really wasn't taking any book notes. And so probably 3 years ago, I started highlighting my book notes when I read in a Kindle application or the Kindle itself. And I wanted to go back and highlight a whole bunch of notes that I may have found inspirational with this book. And so I ended up reading it for a second time. But this time when I reread it to highlight some notes and stuff, I tried to pay attention and look at this through the lens of, would this help most people? And how helpful is this advice for most people? And here is what I have come up with. If you are in a position in your life where you think you really need discipline or you could benefit from discipline, and nothing else in your life has thus far worked, and you're having a really, really hard time in life in general for whatever reason, then this book may be beneficial for you if you want a blueprint of how to set up discipline from the lens of more of I would call this like a military type discipline. So Jocko was a Navy SEAL, and I think he was actually a leader in the Navy SEALs. And you can tell his style in discipline is very, it comes from a military background. I mean, when I read it, that was the impression I got. So if you kind of want, if you think you could benefit from a military type discipline without actually joining the military, then this book may be of value or interest to you. And quite honestly, this book really outlines being disciplined in very common sense type stuff, right? Like being disciplined in eating healthy, being disciplined in exercise, being disciplined and taking accountability for everything in your life. And again, if you're in a really, really rough spot in your life where it's really hard to get things together for various reasons, and you just want a blueprint of, man, I got to get back on track, and I just want a blueprint, I think this book gives a decent blueprint if you are in that state where you're just like, man, I need something, I'm desperate, I gotta fix my life. This offers a solution. and a blueprint without you having to really think about it that much. You just read the book, you try to do the recommendations that Jocko does, and for the most part, I don't think it's going to get you into that much trouble. The solutions that he offers are pretty decent as a whole. Now let's get to some of the negative. No, maybe not. Negative might be too strong of a word, but where certain groups of people may not find this book that beneficial, and in some ways where I felt that the book felt short. And to be clear, I don't agree with all the recommendations that Jocko outlines in the book. I think, again, it's a decent, solid, maybe starting point, but it's definitely not for everyone, especially depending on where you are in your stage of life. So, for example, in the book, Jocko talks about the paleo diet and how the paleo diet is the diet to be on. And for the most part, Jocko does talk about, like, look, the most underlying thing is to try to probably, as far as helping everyone, right? The recommendations that I would probably give is try to limit your processed food as much as possible and just eat whole foods as a starting spot, all right? And again, I am not a nutritionist, and the paleo diet does hit that. That is, trying to eat whole, unprocessed foods. And Jocko talks a lot about how sugar is the enemy, which again, I would say anything with added sugar is probably something that you would want to limit in your diet. I mean, I agree with all of that. But the paleo diet may not be for everyone. And I strongly agree, and I'll do a video on this probably way down the line in the future, that when it comes to nutrition and diet and everything out there, that you'll probably find that there are certain diets that work for different circumstances in your life. For example, if you're diabetic, perhaps one diet might be superior over another. And perhaps if you're trying to limit your risk of heart disease, another diet might be better than another. And if you're trying to gain muscle, another diet might be better for that. So my issue is that this book doesn't really necessarily dive into that. So it doesn't really set up the tools to help you figure out what you want. And perhaps maybe that's good, right? Again, if you're in a part of your life where you don't want to think through what should I do, or you just want something that gives you a blueprint and an actionable plan, then perhaps maybe that's what Jocko was going for. And so this kind of segues nicely into another not necessarily issue, but where people may not gain as much value out of this book, is that this book really is a one-size-fits-all solution, right? It lays out the blueprint, do this, 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 this. It makes the case why discipline equals freedom. I think it does that fairly well, but it really is a one-size-fits-all approach. For example, Jocko is a huge proponent of waking up at 4 a.m. Now, best I can tell, Jocko is blessed with the genetics of being what they call a short sleeper. Basically, and again, this is all speculation on my part, and I think Jocko even admitted it based on the research. There's, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10% of the population where they legitimately do not need as much sleep. It's one thing to not get a lot of sleep, let's say 6 hours or 5 hours, but it's another where this small group of people are able to get their 5-6 hours of sleep. But if you look at them biologically, it is like they got 8 or 9 hours of sleep. They went through the sleep cycles quicker than maybe a normal person, or whatever the case may be. Again, I'm not an expert on it, and this is just speculation on my part, but based on everything Jocko has said, I would not be surprised if he is one of those lucky 5 to 10% of people that just truly do not need sleep and do not get the ill effects of not getting enough sleep. And so in the book, Jocko does say, okay, maybe you don't need to wake up at 4 a.m., but maybe wake up at 5 a.m. and get your stuff done, or maybe 6 a.m. And really, I think what he's trying to say is you need to be disciplined in finding a time, and I would argue it doesn't have to be early in the morning, that is to yourself, and that you can get the things done that you want to really get done and that you really prioritize, right? So maybe that's exercise. Maybe, you know, in Jocko's case, it sounds like he wakes up at 4 a.m. and he does an exercise routine because that is his time and he knows that no one is going to interrupt him. But if you could find that time at 12 noon, from 12 to 1 and be disciplined about that to get your exercise in, then I think that achieves kind of the same goal. I will admit you probably have the highest probability of not being interrupted early in the morning. I agree with Jocko on that. But I think that there are potential other ways of achieving the same thing without necessarily having to wake up at 4 a.m. And a lot of the values that Jocko talks about that you should value and make a high priority are pretty much everything that I talk about. Would be diet, exercise, healthy lifestyle. So, you know, that all kind of matches up. Another thing Jocko will tell you to do, which I agree with, and I'm not always the best at this, is trying to cut out distractions in your life, things that don't really add value or that kind of distract you from the task at hand. Now, another minor gripe with the book, with as far as discipline equals freedom, is that Jocko will just tell you, hold the line. Do not give in to your emotions, right? If you say you're going to get up at 4 a.m. and the alarm goes off, do not give in to the temptation of the pillow, right? And to a certain extent, I really agree with that. At a certain point, you just have to do it and be disciplined about it. However, my disappointment comes in the fact that there are a lot of tips and tricks to help increase that probability that you will succeed in being disciplined. So let me give you an example. If you want to lose weight and you're cutting calories, you're restricting the amount of calories that you're intaking, you know, Jocko would just tell you, hold the line, be disciplined. Again, I think that there's value in that. But it becomes really, really hard when you have ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone, always saying like, I'm not getting enough food, I'm not getting enough food, I'm not getting enough food. And if you have that like going through you, it's so hard to be disciplined. And it's also like a compounding effect. The more you restrict, the more ghrelin is going to be released and the harder it is going to be to hold that line the entire time. So a trick might be to eat foods that are very dense but have very, very low calories, right? Like a big bowl of salad that's going to have high fiber and fill you up may help control some of the ghrelin. And again, if that is your goal of losing weight. So I think it's noble to just say hold the line, but my disappointment is that there's not a lot of tips and tricks of how to help you hold that line, you know, just to make it easier. So overall, I really, really enjoyed the book, and that was because I was able to extract a lot of information out of it to mold it into myself. I recognize that may not be for everyone. Now, I recognize in this video I really didn't discuss why discipline equals freedom, and I've decided not to get into it because this video is getting long enough. I just wanted to focus in on the book review aspects, and the reason I don't want to get into it in this video is it's going to be in a later video. So in conclusion, with this particular book review, I really, really enjoyed the book for me. This book has really inspired me to want to iterate and to really create. I've got 4 videos in mind for a series that will, it'll be discipline equals freedom, and instead of following Jocko's blueprint, which again may be very appropriate for a majority of people or some people out there, but my goal is then to take that and try to convert that into, hey, let's work on this discipline equals freedom concept because it's super, super important, but let's tailor it to your individual needs and see if that ultimately is better based upon your particular needs and situation in life. So that's it. If you think that Discipline Equals Freedom is a book that you may want to check out, and this video has either pushed you in that direction for or against, I encourage you to still do your own quick research to see if it's a book worth reading. It is a fairly short book, so it's not like you'll be wasting too much time if you happen to not like it. And again, hopefully this review will give you a better idea if this book is something that you think is worth reading. So be on the lookout for the next 4 videos. It'll probably take a couple months, but that is very much a work in progress, and I am working on it. And again, as always, thanks for watching.